Playful Pat's Trip to Illinois by Lisa Kelly. Pat was known to be quite playful. When his big eyes sparkled and his little freckles twitched, you never knew what Pat would be up to next. His sister Shannon was just as silly. She always had a joke ready, usually at Pat's expense. Together, they made every trip an adventure. Today, Pat and Shannon were flying to Illinois to visit their dad's family. Pat was super excited, but he also knew it was summer, which meant hot and humid weather. "Phew," he said, fanning himself. Shannon pretended to melt into her airplane seat. "I'm basically going to be a puddle by the time we land." Pat giggled. "That's because summers in Illinois are hot. I like when we visit in spring or fall. Winters are freezing too. The wind feels like it goes straight through your bones." Shannon shivered dramatically and said, "In the winter you are Pat the frozen popsicle." "Did you know," Pat said with a grin, "Illinois is surrounded by 6 states? They are Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, Kentucky, Indiana, and Michigan. It only touches Michigan across Lake Michigan. And guess what? Illinois even has the Mississippi River running along its western border, and the Ohio River down south. On the east side, it touches the huge blue waters of Lake Michigan. That means Illinois has both mighty rivers and one of the Great Lakes." Shannon giggled. "Wow, Illinois has so much water. Does that mean we should have packed floaties instead of suitcases?" Everyone laughed, and Pat pretended to groan. When their plane landed, they were finally in Chicago, the biggest city in Illinois. Pat's eyes lit up. "Dad, can I get a Bears t-shirt? They're my favorite team." Then he added, "I like the Cubs too. But the White Sox, well, they're not so great." Pat ticked them off on his fingers. "So that's the Bears for football, the Cubs for baseball, and the White Sox." He smirked. "I guess you have to include the White Sox, though maybe they should join the Rockies in the banana ball division." Shannon burst out laughing. "Yeah. They could be the Banana Sox." Their dad laughed so hard that people nearby smiled too. "And don't forget the Bulls, one of the best basketball teams ever. They also have the Blackhawks in hockey, the Chicago Sky for women's basketball, the men's soccer Fire, the women's soccer Red Stars, and even the Chicago Hounds, the rugby team. Illinois has a lot of teams to cheer for." Outside the airport, Pat's jaw dropped. There was Lake Michigan, looking so big it could be an ocean. "Can we go swimming?" Pat begged. Shannon pointed and said, "Sure, but I'm pretty sure there are huge boy-eating fish in there." Pat's mom smiled, but Pat looked just a little worried. They hopped in the rental car and started the 2-hour drive to Utica, Illinois. On the way, Pat saw the Willis Tower, some still call it the Sears Tower, reaching high into the clouds. Shannon pressed her nose to the window. "If I went up there, I could probably see our house from space." Dad said, "Did you know the very first skyscraper in the whole world was built right here in Chicago?" Their mom pointed out the Magnificent Mile, a famous shopping street. "I once rode the escalator all the way up to the top," she said. "It took forever." Shannon said, "That's because you probably stopped at every store on the way." Mom gave her a playful swat and laughed. She said, "No, I spent most of my time in the American Girl store. I returned your doll 3 times, trying to find the one that looked just like you." Shannon hugged her doll and said, "I sure do love my doll." Pat's tummy rumbled. "I'm hungry," he said. He thought of all the yummy food in Illinois. The deep dish pizza was the cheesiest, the Chicago hot dogs came piled with toppings, and the Italian beef sandwiches were so juicy and delicious. Pat's eyes lit up. "Rip's chicken," he shouted. Shannon clapped her hands. "The crispiest, crunchiest chicken ever." Everyone agreed, Rip's was the best chicken in Illinois and maybe the world. As they drove farther, the tall shiny buildings slowly melted into wide, golden cornfields. Pat pressed his face to the window and smiled. He loved Utica, because it was surrounded by 3 amazing state parks. Pat's favorite was Starved Rock State Park. To him, it looked more like Colorado than Illinois, with tall cliffs, winding trails, and waterfalls all next to the Illinois River. He especially loved the giant totem poles standing proudly along the walkways, as if they were guarding the park's secrets. Pat's dad told the kids that he went to college at Southern Illinois University, or SIU. He explained that it was surrounded by the Shawnee National Forest, a place so big and beautiful you could get lost in the woods. Pat's eyes lit up. "Can we go there?" he asked hopefully. His dad chuckled and shook his head. "It would take us about 4.5 hours to drive there from Utica." Pat sighed and grinned. "Well, maybe next time." His dad added, "You'd love it, Pat. There's a place there called the Garden of the Gods, with giant rock formations that look like castles and animals." Pat asked his dad, "How long does it take to drive all the way across Illinois?" His dad thought for a moment and said, "Well, it takes about 4 to 5 hours to drive east to west." Shannon piped up, "Okay, but how long does it take to drive from the very top of Illinois to the very bottom?" Her mom smiled. "That's a big trip. It's almost 6 hours, maybe more if you stop for snacks." Then her mom added a trick question. "What is the capital of Illinois?" Shannon yelled, "Chicago." "No," Pat said. "It's Springfield, right in the middle of the state." Pat curled up in the back seat, his eyes growing heavy. He thought about everything he had seen, towering skyscrapers, sparkling lakes, and even cornfields that stretched forever. Shannon said with a smile, "Since we come here every year, we should go to a new place each time we visit." Pat perked up. "Yeah, like a Bears game." Everyone laughed, and Dad said, "That sounds like a perfect plan." As the car rolled through the quiet night toward Utica, Pat drifted off to sleep, already dreaming about their next Illinois adventure. The end. Hit that subscribe button